Hi, my dragons. Welcome to Tuesday's class on research methods. So today we're going to finish the intro, I hope, and we're going to talk about different things that we need to consider for our research. So pretty soon you'll be doing your research topic idea, just what you've been thinking about that you want to do your research project on, and we'll see how they are. I just got out of my online graduate class and they had some pretty good ideas, so I'm hoping to see what you guys will come up with as well. So we left off at research shock, which hopefully you're beyond your shock now. I will put a thing on the forum too, so make sure you do that for today for attendance as usual. So yes, you are in a new class and it's going to be a lot of terms. Sometimes it can be completely overwhelming, but yeah, so it's like you're learning a new language because it is a new area and you're going to get a lot of interesting terms. So you're going to learn to speak the language of researchese, okay? So sometimes you'll get out of the class or you'll be in the class and someone will say something to you and you'll go, wow, that's an empirical question. And they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? Well, you're learning to speak researchese, so there you go. So all of you will talk about something that you want to do research in, and that will be your hypothetical construct. A hypothetical construct is an idea, a thing that we all talk about. It's a construct that we all talk about, but you can't like reach in and grab that thing. Okay, we all kind of agree on it. It's hypothetical. That's what makes it hypothetical. So if I were to say to you, what is love? And if there's, 13 people in the class, there's going to be 13 different answers, okay? So love would be the construct, and everybody will define it in a different way. That's why we call it hypothetical. You can't just like reach out and grab a love. So that's what makes it what it is. So that's what you'll be doing research on. And your hypothetical construct will be something like, criminal justice or recidivism or, like remember we were talking about what is a cure? Well, cure is a hypothetical construct because everybody has a different idea about what constitutes a cure, okay? And I did see some of that in the ideas from my online grad class. They were all talking about something, and I said, well, you're going to have to define what you mean by that. So there you go. Defining what you mean is what we call an empirical realization, okay? And what that means is how you're going to make it measurable, how you're going to define it for your research, okay? You may have heard the older term, operational definition, which basically means how you're going to define it to do your operations on, okay? So when you say something that you want to measure something, you have to fulfill basic things for the scientific method, okay? So like I had a graduate student talking about serial killers, okay? He wanted to do something on serial killers or evil personalities like Adolf Hitler. And I thought to myself, well, you're going to have to define what it is about Hitler that you're interested in, like maybe compare him to other dictators or compare his actions to other people who have been rulers and then evaluate them on some sort of evil scale or something like that. You have to be able to measure whatever it is that you want to do and generate data. Okay, that's what we're looking for. So on an exam, you will have to identify, I'll give you a piece of research, and you will have to go through and identify the theory, the hypothesis, what were the empirical realization, what were the independent variables and the dependent variables. We'll talk about all of that. But that's what your exams are going to be like. You're going to have to not define them like in other classes where, here's the definition, tell me the definition, okay, you'll learn the definition. No, you have to be able to apply what you're learning and be able to know it when you see it. So that's why the exams might seem a little difficult, because it isn't applying what you know, like hands-on knowledge in this class. So the empirical realization is how you're going to come to define it, okay? From that you generate hypotheses, and hypotheses are nothing more than statements about how you think your research are going to turn out, okay? So if you remember from statistics, you had 3 possible hypotheses. H sub 0, which is the null hypothesis, H sub 1, which is an alternate hypothesis, and H sub 2, which is another alternate hypothesis. One goes positive and one goes negative. So in the null hypothesis, that means that there's no difference between the two things that you're comparing. let's take the example of police officers, police chiefs. We'll talk about police chiefs. And we're interested to know if male police chiefs are more efficient or do a better job than female police chiefs. So here's the issue. You have to define what you mean by doing a better job. Let's say, okay, we're going to do arrest records, arrests in the city, and successful prosecution of cases, and that's going to be our definition of doing a better job. So what you would do in that case is you're going to take cities that have a male police chief and cities that have female police chief. They're the same size, they have the same relative level of crime, and then you're going to look at how many arrests were in that city and then how many prosecutions you got. And then you're going to statistically analyze which of those sets of data were statistically significant. So the hypothetical construct is, police chiefs and gender. And your empirical realization is arrest. So it's going to be doing a better job, and you're going to define that as arrests and prosecution, okay? So you might say, hey, the null hypothesis, there's no difference between male and female. Female police chiefs do a better job, and the H2 is male police chiefs do a better job. And that's your hypothesis, empirical realizations, and hypothetical constructs, okay? So then you are going to subject those to an experimental method. In other words, you're going to make your definitions, make your hypotheses, and then you're going to isolate your independent variables. So your independent variable, the thing you're studying is police chiefs. You're going to define that by gender, male versus female police chiefs. And then your dependent variable is going to be your, what makes for a better success, okay? And then you're going to define that by arrests and prosecution, okay? So an independent variable is always the thing you're comparing. And in this case, you're comparing gender. Okay? So gender is your independent variable, always the thing you're going to break up. And in this case, you're breaking it up between male and female. Okay? You're going to have to identify that on a test. What's my independent variable? Gender. What are you doing? Breaking it up by 2. Okay? And then your dependent variable, and again, you can have as many independent variables and as many dependent variables as you can stand. The dependent variable is what you're measuring. Okay, so you have to make that distinction and get it straight in your head. I'm going to repeat it to you over and over again here, and you're going to be like, I got it. And you'd be surprised how difficult it is on a test when people are like, oh, I'm looking at this thing, and I don't know what the independent variables are, the dependent, okay, I'm going to break, what am I comparing, what am I measuring? So it does get confusing when you go to apply it, okay? So your dependent variable, again, what you're measuring, you can use a questionnaire. In this case, you're using data like arrest records or prosecution data, things like that. So your dependent variable is what you're measuring. Then you're going to analyze the data. And I don't know what you did in terms of statistics, but you probably remember doing descriptive statistics. You will have to do descriptive statistics. It's the first analysis that you will have to do in your research. Descriptive statistics describe the data that you have. And again, you can go out to different police departments and give them, go look at their records for arrest and prosecution. You can look that up online. It's public information. It has to be kept. And then you will make a listing of how many arrests in the state, this state A versus state B. That's another thing. If you're going to compare, effectiveness by state would be another independent variable. And you can break that up to 50, which I don't know that you want 50 comparisons, but you can break that up into 50 comparisons to see what the arrest rate is and the prosecution rate is. But remember, you have to compare the same size of a city as well. So maybe you're going to do all the capitals or something for every state. But that would be another independent variable. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at, what those statistics are. You're going to put them in a spreadsheet, whether you're using SPSS or Excel. And then first thing you're going to do is run descriptive statistics, and that will give you the mean, the mode, the median, all of those things, okay? And then you're going to do an analysis of the data. So you'll also have the arrest records by state. So a separate column for just arrests and a separate column for just prosecutions, successful prosecutions. And then what you're going to do is you'll probably do, and I don't know if you did that in statistics, you probably did, maybe you forgot. You're going to do like t-tests or f-tests. T-tests compare the means, f-tests compare the amount of variance. We're going to get into that in a minute. But you'll do those kinds of analyses. I'll help you with them, so don't panic. I know you'll be like, oh my God, just put me in shock again. But I'll help you do that. It's really kind of interesting to see what the data yield. So that's an example of what we call archival data. It's data that's already exists. You don't have to go out and give questionnaires or talk to people because it's a matter of public record and all states keep track of these things. And you're just taking the data that's already there and you're grouping it into different sorts of interesting relationships to see if there are any statistical relationships in that data. Okay, so that's a really good source of things to do. So you're going to have to do that data analysis. That's, what you're going to do. And then you're going to have to conceptually try and interpret what you got. So you're going to look at the statistics and say, okay, what does this mean? Okay, and conceptually you can do whatever it is that your data it wants you to do. So if you have numbers like what I'm just talking about, arrest record and prosecution, successful prosecution, that is good for descriptive statistics, t-tests, and analysis of variance. You may have to do and some data depending on the kind of data that you're looking at, it's a different type of statistical analysis. So let's say you were interested in how people pled for a particular crime, guilty, not guilty. Those are discrete variables, and you're going to look at does a plea come up more often than expected? Okay, so that's probability. I would expect, the pleas to be 50-50. Half the time you're pleading not guilty and half the time you're pleading guilty. So a chi-square interprets, does it beat the probability? Does it exceed what you expect or not? Okay, and if it does exceed what you expect, then you can make a conclusion about what's going on. You could also do a correlation, like these two things are correlated. People misuse that word all the time. That's actually a statistical test, so you shouldn't use that word unless you're actually doing a statistical test. The other one that people misuse is significance. Well, that's really significant. Well, did you do a statistical test? Well, which one did you do? And they're just like, I didn't mean it like that. No, of course, because you're using a statistical term to describe what you think. The word you want is important, okay? So we'll have to look at your data and see what type of statistical test you're going to do. Sometimes I will say, why don't we structure your data this way because this statistical test is easier and the other one is more difficult, and students will be like, okay, I want the easy way. So that's fine too, okay? So what you're going to look for is statistical significance. So statistical significance, I think I'm going to explain this in the next video because it's going to take me a while to do this next group of statistical things. So let me do this in video part 2, okay? So this is Tuesday. This is the video for Tuesday, part 1, and I will do part 2 next. Okay.